Have you ever done the exercise? I call it like recapturing lost time. If I asked you, what are your top 3 priorities in life right now? What do you think you'd say?
My family, my job, and then the podcast. Or between the podcast and the job are both the same because I really love this.
You really love this. Okay. So if you look at what you did yesterday and you wrote down every minute what you did, how many minutes were spent on your family, podcast, or work?
It's a really good question. I would say mostly on the podcast.
Right. Okay. So isn't that interesting? So then what's, I don't want to say neglected. That's like kind of a drastic word, but that family piece, right? That was the
Yeah.
first thing you told me that was like the most important. Interesting, isn't it?
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. You can draw your own conclusion. So how do you recapture your time so that it doesn't feel so fleeting and always escaping you, and bring it in and spend it in the places that you want to spend it on? That takes some looking at. I call it like the do, plan, delegate, eliminate type of question, right? Because we like to spend time sometimes on things that are urgent, but not necessarily important.
That's true.
There's the family. They're important, but a lot of times they're not urgent because they're always going to be there. They're not going anywhere.
Right. And I think I should say I struggle with, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with, especially when first starting out, of not wanting to delegate anything, first because of cost. And then secondly, because for me, I'm kind of a control freak when it comes to stuff like that. Like I want it perfect, but you're right. Could anybody edit my podcast? Probably. There's a lot of editors out there.
If you did pass that off, how would that impact the capacity of what you could do?
Exactly. You have to take into account the time that it's costing you and how much your time is worth.
Yes. When we talk about delegation, which is a great topic, here's the thing I want you to think about with that. There's 5 levels of delegation. All delegating doesn't look the same. So there's delegating where you say to someone, I want you to go edit the podcast and I want you to actually put it out there in the world. Like I'm out. You don't have to ask me any questions. I totally trust you. That's like what I would call like a level 5 delegation. There's also then like level 1, which is just like, hey, will you research and come back and show me how I can edit this maybe more efficiently? And then in between, there's other levels where you might say, hey, I want you to edit it, but then I want you to send it back to me so I can review it. And then I'll send it back to you and you'll put it out in the world. It helps to get clear on what level of delegation you're comfortable with. And it also then helps the relationship between you and the person you have delegated to. A great, easy example of this, as I like to use, is folding towels. Okay. Like we are not the only people in the world that could fold a towel in our household. I'm just going to guess, but we may not like the way they do it. It might not get done in the exact like minute we want it to get done. They might get put in the closet or drawer in a different way. So we have to kind of decide where our level of trust is within the delegation process. And does it really matter if they're folded the other way?
Yes. No. Told you, control freak. No,
Right.
but you're absolutely right. And I think it could be a process, right? So when you first start delegating to that one particular person, as they build your trust and you can feel that, let go of the control.
Let go of the control. And it's, if you can look at this, analyze this, like, where am I? What's my trust level now? Can I get it so that I could potentially just tell them to go fold the towels and never look at them again? It may take some time, but in the end, it's probably worth it. It's worth it because it's freeing up long-term space in your brain to do other things.
That's true. And that's where the whole figure out what's really important to you comes into play.
Correct.
You know, the other thing that I struggle with that I noticed is a topic that you cover is I'm really passionate about what it is that I do. How do I get other people to understand that it's important to me? Because it's really difficult to say, like, I have to spend time on this because it's important to me. You're important too. So it's very conflicting for me.
So this guilt thing comes in, right? Because you think you should be spending time with them because they're not really getting it. They're feeling neglected. Okay. So there's 2 things to this. Number 1 is these are all thoughts. If you spent 4 hours on your podcast in 1 hour with your child. Those are just facts. Like I spent 4 hours working on my podcast and 1 hour with my kids. You have thoughts about that ratio of time. Like, what are some of your thoughts? Like, give me some thoughts on that.
Mm. That it's unfair to them that I'm spending so much time and so much more time that I am with them.
Okay. So first of all, the problem there is you're projecting what you think they're thinking. We don't really know what they're thinking. You have to kind of make these thoughts about you. So is the thought, I should be spending more time with them?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So if the thought is, I should be spending more time with them, how does that make you feel?
Guilty that I don't, and kind of selfish because in this case, I'm putting myself before I'm putting time with them.
So if you're feeling guilty, what's your action or reaction or inaction that happens from that? What do you do?
Usually it's a reaction because then I start getting irritable because I'm mad at myself and then it makes it even worse.
Right. So the result of all of that is nothing great, right?
Right.
Nothing great. How it shows up in the world is you being irritable, nothing changes, and everybody's kind of just blah. Okay. So that's kind of like evidence of your thought that I should be doing something, not that it's happening. And is that really useful? Is that thought, I should be spending more time with them, really useful? Is it getting you anywhere?
No.
No. So if you want to spend more time with them, well, first of all, I guess I would examine, should you be spending more time with them? Like, who says?
Good point. Good point.
Is that a fact?
I guess it's an opinion, but I think it's an opinion that a lot of people have.
Okay. But do you have it?
It depends on which part of me you ask, because, there's the work part of me who would rather be here in this kind of conversation all day long. I could do this 24/7. And then there's a mom side of me that knows that it's good to spend time with them. But for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm being myself. So I don't want to give that up.
So it sounds to me like you enjoy working.
I do.
What if the time that you were spending with them, let's say it is only an hour, not only, it is an hour. What if that 1 hour could be super enjoyable? You're spending more time on work, probably because you just said to me, it's like you finally feel like you're enjoying it. It's not to say that you don't enjoy spending time with them, but it's harder.
For sure.
For sure.
Thank you. That actually does help a lot. So make it quality time, not necessarily quantity, and then change the mindset around, it's only an hour. I'm spending so much less time with them.
Yes.
Instead of being there thinking about how I should be doing my podcast, I guess do it consciously.
Exactly. Like think about how you can make both the podcast time and the kid time. I always like to say, can it be simple, doable, and fun? How can this time I'm spending with them be simple in the sense of that it's just me and them and we don't have to worry about other things? I'm not worrying about making dinner or folding towels. Make it fun. And then the podcast time can be fun. If it's not simple, doable, and fun, then we don't want to do it.
Right. And I think that's a tool that everybody can apply, because it really should be something that you are happy with and enjoying that time, dedicating your time to it because it's important to you. Yeah, that kind of ties everything in.
It does. It does. So it's like you're adding to your value bank in the world through the podcast, but you're also adding to the value bank of the world by spending time with your kids. So hopefully they're becoming great little human beings.